Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now we actually have a couple warning signals here for both Bitcoin and Ethereum holders, which I'll be talking about in just a moment alongside my current short-term strategy. So definitely stick around. First of all, taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, and what we can see right now in the daily Bitcoin RSI is the fact that the RSI is currently struggling to form a new higher high. Now, obviously, as I've been saying over the past few weeks, while the daily Bitcoin RSI remains in this uptrend, forming higher highs and higher lows, then technically speaking, that is more bullish than bearish for the price of Bitcoin. Very similar to what we saw in the first quarter of this year, where the daily Bitcoin RSI was trending to the upside, which helped out the Bitcoin price as well. But during the times where the daily Bitcoin RSI started forming lower highs, we started to see a little bit more short-term bearish price action. But then when the daily Bitcoin RSI fully broke that uptrend altogether and started forming lower highs and lower lows, that was when we began another massive leg to the downside in the price of Bitcoin. Now, obviously, if you're looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, we're not at that stage just yet, but we're potentially at a stage where the daily Bitcoin RSI is struggling to form higher highs. And especially if this continues over the coming days, this is not really a good sign for Bitcoin in the immediate short term at least, which tells us that we could be due for a bit of a short-term pullback like what we saw in the second half of February this year. And if you take a closer look at the Bitcoin price, zooming into the 12-hour time frame, you can see that the price of Bitcoin has clearly made higher highs in terms of the candle closes, but the 12-hour Bitcoin RSI is currently forming lower highs, as I've been talking about over the past few days, which is technically a bearish divergence beginning to form. Now, this hasn't fully been confirmed as of recording this video, because in order to confirm this bearish divergence in place, we need to see an actual high confirm here in the RSI especially. But basically, while this is here on the chart, while the RSI is forming lower highs on the 12-hour chart especially, this technically means that the price of Bitcoin is losing some of its bullish momentum, and we could be due for a bit of a cool-off. But obviously, for those of you who have been keeping up to date with my recent videos over the past few days, this is nothing new. I've been talking about this over the past few days. But while we're looking at the 12-hour Bitcoin chart, if you're looking at the 12-hour Bitcoin MACD over the past 1 month or so, what we can see over this time period, looking at the histogram within the MACD indicator, is a decrease in bullish momentum on each of these bullish movements in the short term. And while we've been seeing less and less bullish momentum according to the histogram within the MACD indicator, we've also seen a slight increase each time round on these short-term bearish movements. And this too can also be seen as a bearish divergence between the MACD and the price action, because obviously the MACD is suggesting less and less bullish momentum, while the price action has technically been forming higher highs over the past 1 month or so. And not only are we starting to lose a bit of short-term bullish momentum according to this bearish divergence and also this bearish divergence, going back to these charts, we can look at these lines of support and resistance by connecting the highs and the lows. And even in the best case scenario, where the Bitcoin price is to remain in this uptrend and continue on with a further recovery to the upside, we can still notice that within this uptrend, the price of Bitcoin is currently at the higher end of that uptrend. Because if you're thinking of this uptrend as kind of like a range that is tilted to the upside, currently the price of Bitcoin is closer towards its resistance than closer towards its support. So as I was saying, even in the best case scenario for Bitcoin, where we continue to see this uptrend into a further recovery, we still have some potential short-term downside risk here. And by the way, in case you're wondering, this level of resistance is currently coming into play at around 24.7k, and this level of support is currently coming into play at around $22,000, which means even if the price of Bitcoin pulls back towards that 22k level, we could still very much be within this uptrend, because it isn't unless Bitcoin starts breaking below this upper trending line of support, or more importantly, breaks below that previous low at around 20.7k, it's only then where this month-long uptrend starts to form into another bearish trend. But right now, technically speaking, this is currently more of a bullish trend than a bearish trend. It's just we do have a couple warning signals in terms of a bearish divergence here in the MACD and in the RSI currently forming, while the price action is towards the upper side of the uptrend, which means we do potentially have some short-term downside risk just here. And speaking of the short term, zooming into the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, and what we can see just here is the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI recently entered into overbought territories while the Bitcoin price attempted some sort of breakout. But once again, like I've been saying over the past few days, I've been saying that the room to the upside is very limited, meaning that we couldn't really go too far to the upside without the RSI entering into overbought territories, considering where the RSI was sitting over the past few days. But if you're looking at what's happened over the past few hours at the time of recording this video, we've started to see a little bit more of a cool off in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI, which is actually a good sign to see for Bitcoin because this technically gives us some more room to the upside later on. But with that being said, if you're looking at the 4-hour Bitcoin MACD, we're currently forming a short-term bearish cross just here. But at the time of recording this video, this hasn't fully been confirmed just yet because we still need to see a 4-hour candle close. And by the time you're watching this video, we might have already seen that. But as of recording this video, this hasn't yet been confirmed. It's just forming. And if you simply take a look at the last couple times where the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI was brushing against overbought territories while the 4-hour Bitcoin MACD was crossing bearish, during both of those times in the market, we did end up seeing a short-term bearish movement over the next few days after already experiencing a short-term bullish movement leading up to those short-term bearish signals, which is currently the stage in the market that we're at just in the short term. And if you want to be more specific in the length of these previous short-term pullbacks, this first example that we saw back at the end of June, that lasted for around 4 to 5 days before we started bottoming out and heading back to the upside. So around half a week to 1 week. But looking at this second example, we saw a short-term pullback that lasted for around 5 days or so. So once again, between around half a week to 1 week. And in this second example, we saw a short-term pullback that lasted for around 6 days. So closer towards 1 week. So simply based on all of these short-term bullish and bearish movements that we've seen over the past 1 month within this uptrend that we've seen over the past 1 month, technically speaking, we could be due for a bit of a pullback in the Bitcoin price. Now, we could end up seeing more confirmation for a bearish scenario, which we haven't yet seen, such as a break below the 5-day moving average, which is currently coming into play at around 22.8k. So that would, of course, give us more confirmation for a bearish scenario, which we haven't yet seen. But as of right now, we do have some early signals on the chart, which are technically leaning more bearish than bullish at the time of recording this video. So due to all of this, what I did quite a few hours ago was send out this tweet over on my Twitter, which, by the way, if you're not following me on my Twitter, make sure you're doing that. The link is down below in the description and in the pinned comment. But basically what I said just here was, after going heavy into Bitcoin sub 20k, I'm currently hedging my downside risk, not financial advice. So what that means is, after dollar cost averaging quite heavily into Bitcoin down at these levels below 20,000, right now, after experiencing a decent gain since those sub 20k levels, right now I'm currently hedging my downside risk in the case of a potential bearish scenario playing out here. Because before making that recent change in my short-term strategy, I was very much making a one-sided trade in this market because, once again, I was very heavy into Bitcoin. And all this time, by the way, I've been continuing to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. So in that strategy, obviously, I'll do very well if the Bitcoin price just keeps pumping and keeps pumping. But with the recent change in my short-term Bitcoin strategy, I've basically made my portfolio less of a one-sided trade, which means I won't benefit as much if we continue going to the upside, but I won't have as much downside risk. So obviously in that first example, in that first strategy, I would have more downside risk if I'm very heavy into Bitcoin right here, and especially if I'm still buying into Bitcoin right here. But basically what I did a few hours ago was simply rebalance my portfolio so that if we play out that short-term bearish price action, like some of these signals are potentially suggesting, then in that scenario, I'll be more protected and I'll be in more of a position to actually take advantage of that scenario. And to be more specific in the recent changes to my short-term strategy, first of all, my long-term investing strategy hasn't changed, which means I haven't sold any of my long-term Bitcoin holdings, which are currently sitting in cold storage. But after I've already been dollar cost averaging in this entire time period, and especially going very heavy below 20k, right now I'm currently not dollar cost averaging anymore because I've already accumulated a lot of Bitcoin at these lower prices. So I'm no longer dollar cost averaging as of right now. But it is important to mention mention that that is not personal financial advice for you, because obviously your situation might be completely different to my situation. Obviously, I'm doing that because I was very heavy into Bitcoin after accumulating down here, but you might not be the same. And other than pausing my regular dollar cost averaging at the moment, what I've also done is open up a couple short positions on both Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they're not your regular short positions because first of all, they have very low leverage, and second of all, they trade on the spot market, which means they don't have a liquidation price. And what I'm using to actually do that is the Bybit leveraged tokens. Now, keep in mind that these also come with risk. They're, of course, not zero risk, even though they don't have a liquidation price. And I won't be going too deep into all of this and how it works because that isn't the purpose of this video. But if you want me to make a separate video talking about exactly how this works, let me know in the comment section down below. But basically, this token right here trades on Bybit under the ticker BTC3S, which basically means it's backed by short positions on Bybit with a 3x leverage short positions. So what this means is if the Bitcoin price goes up 1%, then this token goes down 3%. But if the Bitcoin price goes down 1%, then this token goes up around 3%. So going back to the Bitcoin chart, let's just say if the Bitcoin price, for example, revisits this previous low, which might be a 10% drop. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but in an example where we might see a 10% pullback, this BTC3S token in that example would see a 30% gain. But like I said, of course, there is still risk when it comes to this. Like, for example, if the Bitcoin price keeps going up, then this token will go down further. But just for full transparency, I have accumulated a small amount of these tokens and a small amount of the Ethereum ones as well, the Ethereum 3S, which is, of course, backed by Ethereum short positions at a 3x leverage. But it is important to mention that no matter what it is, leverage shouldn't be for complete beginners out there. And second of all, this, of course, is not personal financial advice. I'm just letting you know what I'm currently doing with my own money based on my situation. But because I don't know your personal situation, obviously I can't tell you what to do with your own money. But if you want to check these out over on Bybit, I do actually have a link to Bybit down below in the description and also in the pinned comment as well if you want to. But anyway, getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this right here is the daily Ethereum chart, and we're seeing somewhat similar signs here for Ethereum as what I said for Bitcoin on the daily chart, because if you're looking at the daily Ethereum RSI, obviously we've been in an uptrend in the daily Ethereum RSI over the past 1 to 1.5 months, but more recently, while the price action has been forming slightly higher highs, the daily Ethereum RSI has been forming slightly lower highs. So because of the fact that the RSI is struggling to form higher highs, and also because of the fact that it's very close to overbought territories, technically speaking, this does mean that we're due to see a bit more of a short-term cool-off, whether that's a sideways consolidation or more of a pullback. Just either way, we're due to see a bit of a cool-off in that RSI away from overbought territories, which usually also means a potential pullback in the price. And also that 1.7k level for Ethereum is very important. So if Ethereum starts losing that level, then that could be a bit of a short-term warning sign if we do see a bit more price action below 1700. But right now, at the time of recording this video, Ethereum is doing relatively okay at hanging around that $1,700 level. But if you zoom into the 12-hour Ethereum chart, obviously we still have that bearish divergence forming right now, as I have been talking about over the past couple of days. And once again, this is a sign on the chart telling us that Ethereum is losing some of that bullish momentum, and we could be due for a bit of a pullback, or at the very least, a bit more sideways price action. So it's basically the same story for Ethereum right here as what I said for Bitcoin on the 12-hour chart. But if you zoom into the 4-hour Ethereum chart, what we're seeing at the moment is already a confirmed bearish cross in the 4-hour Ethereum MACD. So this right here is obviously one confirmed bearish signal just on the 4-hour time frame. And on top of that, if you're looking at the 4-hour Ethereum RSI, currently this is kind of reversed into more of a bearish trend in the immediate short term, forming slightly lower highs and lower lows. And if you simply take a look at the last time we saw this happening in the 4-hour Ethereum RSI, that was back here roughly around 1.5 weeks ago. And obviously at that time in the market, after already seeing a lot of bullish price action in the short term, we were due for a bit of a cool off, which at that stage in the market played out as sideways price action and then more of a pullback, which pulled back the RSI back down towards oversold territories, giving us more room to the upside later on. But taking a look at the time before that, and that was in early July, and obviously after reaching into overbought territories, the 4-hour Ethereum RSI pulled back a little bit, which was immediately a short-term bearish signal for Ethereum. And instead of playing out a bit of choppy sideways price action, first of all, we pretty much immediately entered into more of a short-term pullback for Ethereum over the next few days, up towards the next 1 week or so. And already over the past few days, we've been playing out a lot of choppy sideways price action, as I've been talking about on my channel over the past few days, saying that we're due for a bit of a cool off here in the RSI, which most likely means choppy sideways price action or potentially a bit more of a pullback. So those are really the main reasons why I'm currently hedging my downside risk for the short term for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. But once again, my long-term investing strategy, as in my strategy for years to come, hasn't changed at all. And if you want to know how to maximize your profits in crypto, whether or not the price is going up, down, or chopping around sideways, then check out one of these uploads popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is going either up or down with longs and shorts, and the video in the bottom left shows you how to make money in a choppy sideways price range. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.